Hey guys, welcome to my Garcia versus Onama breakdown. Already stuttering, like 5 seconds in. Let me know if you guys can hear me, please. So I'm gonna do the format for this stream a bit different than usual, and you guys will see why. But I'm going to actually be changing the format of content in general going forwards because of last week. You'll see what I mean when I get to this. Hey everyone. We'll wait around 1 minute, then we're going to start with a recap of last week. Then I'll go to questions for a few minutes, and then we'll go to the breakdown. Moment of silence for Hamdi, valid. Can I do the main event first? You could always rewatch later if you need to. But it'll probably be, I mean, even if I started with the main event, it would be in, say, 20 or so minutes, so you may just want to watch the stream later, but I do appreciate you being here. They cut Azak Maksum. Yeah, that performance was really bad. We'll get to that in a second. Alright, let's start on the review from last week. Where is this? So, starting with Mizuki versus Amarim, I'm not surprised. Honestly, I should have outright picked Mizuki. If you guys remember, I was saying she definitely could win this because of her footwork. That's kind of what we saw. Amarim just didn't know how to set up a takedown against someone who had better footwork. So, not surprised at all. I do want to see Mizuki be more active because she seems to fight once every 2 years. Amarim she needs more nuance in her game, because even though her jiu-jitsu is amazing, when she's fighting an opponent who does not want to comply with her game plan and isn't a complete can, they're just going to move around until she gasses out. But yeah, we'll see how far Mizuki can go. She did go to a split decision with Jandaroba, and I thought she actually won, even though she did technically lose that. So we'll see what happens in the future. The big upset of the night, well, technically that was an upset, but the biggest upset of the night from what I know, with Muxum versus Raposo, it was a strange fight. I don't know if the weight cut affected Muxum. Maybe he's just too big to be at flyweight, because he did miss by 3 pounds, if I remember correctly. He was not throwing offensively, and when he was throwing offensively, he was overcommitting, and Raposo was just countering. Now, full credit to Raposo here. Raposo's boxing has always been good, and he was finally letting his hands go a bit more. So he was definitely landing and definitely becoming a problem there. Also, his grappling defense was a lot better than I expected. I thought the stand-up might be a little bit even, and then Muxum would just get a takedown and sub him. But Raposo, even though he technically got taken down 7 times, these were like smudge takedowns. Nothing happened, and then he just got back up. So hopefully Raposo got more confidence in general in his hands somehow and goes somewhere from here. This fight, I mean, put half of us to sleep, I guess. That's all I could say about it. Hamdi saying he broke his hand or something, and that's why it was a bad performance, but all of Hamdi's performances are bad, so it's hard to really give him any slack at this point. Obviously, he's gone from the UFC, so it doesn't even matter at this point. Barnett should not be fighting. He's just, like, literally a sacrifice at this point. I have no idea why they cut Hamdi and not Barnett. Like, cut them both at least. But yeah, that was just a terrible showing from both of them. Barnett doesn't know how to stuff a takedown, Hamdi doesn't know how to hit someone. Yeah. This fight, very fun fight and good showing from both of them, Wood versus Delgado. I thought it was a pretty bad robbery, though. I had Delgado winning 30-27. Round 2, you could definitely argue for Wood. I'm not mad at a 29-28 for Delgado, but I just didn't think there was an argument that Wood won round 3, in all honesty. That being said, it's not a terrible thing for Delgado. Now he'll take a step back down. He'll probably get a few more highlight reel finishes, and then he can go back up again. Wood is probably not going to have much of a future here. Like, even though he squeaks out the win, ranked opponents are probably going to finish him in all reality. Like, he just doesn't have significant finishing ability, and there's just nothing overtly special about his game, even though he's pretty good everywhere. Walker versus Sutherland is just the joke that Walker has created. Good to see a heavyweight doing something besides Tom D. Barnett things, to say the least. So good on Walker for getting another heel hook. The low kick from Sutherland, I was talking about that last week. That was a lot more devastating than even I expected it to be. And I was someone who did know that that could be a problem. So Sutherland may actually have a future in this division, despite the fact that he was clearly juicing on regional scene and then went into the UFC and his physique kind of melted. So I do want to see him take a step down. Maybe he will finish someone with calf kicks or compromise them enough to finish them with his hands. Walker could probably fight ranked comp, but he wants to just rack up the easy wins against like low-level competition, so fair enough. I mean, especially at heavyweight, I can't fault guys for doing that because the division's just so useless. Like, if they're going to cut a division, it should definitely be heavyweight because there's nothing viable in this division at all. Klein versus Radtke was kind of made up for the fact that some of these earlier fights sucked because that was a war. Unlucky for Klein, just snapping his ankle in round 3, but played out pretty much how I think most of us expected. Klein is just the cleaner striker. Radtke throws a bit too looping with everything. Klein was just countering, moving out of the way, etc. Klein definitely still has ranked potential. I do think that he is going to struggle, though, just because he's not able to finish guys even when he gets them hurt, which is going to be a problem at lightweight, because especially as you go up the rankings, some of these guys are just so ridiculously dangerous. So I do think Klein has a future. I think Radtke, it's hard to say where he goes from here, because this is 3 losses out of his last 4. He bleeds at pretty much nothing, and it's just, like, he's good, don't get me wrong. He's a great wrestler. He's very, I'm not going to say durable, but he's very tenacious. He's never going to give up on himself. So fair play to Radtke. I'm glad he's always there to put on wars, but he's in a very awkward place where, like, he can't really fight down, but he definitely can't fight up. So it's tough on him here. Ikram versus Park was kind of a letdown in my opinion. Ikram won easily, which again was expected, but he just did not want to chase a finish at all. I don't know if it was switching to Khabib's camp, which was the problem, but there was just zero aggression out of him, and he still has the problem that he gasses very easily. So Ikram is someone who's really not going to go at all further, in my opinion. Which is a shame, because he has the natural attributes. Like, on the ground, he is spectacular, and even on the feet, he is very fast and powerful. But his defense has just never evolved. He's not very durable, and yeah, he just isn't putting it together. Ikram looks horrible? Yeah, I agree. Do you think Walter Walker can be champ? It's possible, but we need to really see like what he's doing on the feet, because we've only seen like a few seconds of stand up from him every single fight. I'm not going to judge him off taking one calf kick, like that happens, but we would need to see like him knock someone out or something to see if he has championship potential. Barnett is just there for a free highlight reel at this point. Yeah, except it wasn't even a highlight reel this time. It was so useless of a fight. Okay. Seokhyeon versus Hakbrast. This one did surprise me. Even if Seokhyeon was going to win, I thought it would have been like a smudge decision here. Nasrat was looking good early, and was, in all honesty, kind of outclassing him on the feet. But fair play, Seokhyeon set up the head kick very well, was using the body kicks a lot early, got the hands down, then just came up on top. So good for Seokhyeon. I still think he's going to have trouble, because now he's going to get pushed up a lot faster, and these are guys who are going to be more defensively responsible than Nasrat, while being also probably just as like fundamentally sound and more dangerous as well. So Seokhyeon's another one of those guys who, if he does not evolve quickly, he's in a tough spot, but maybe he will. We'll have to see where he goes from here. How do you see Seokhyeon versus Rufi? Looks like the fight they're making on the February card. I would not give Seokhyeon much a chance against Rufi right now, because I think people are going to assume like, oh, Rufi just got wrestled, so Seokhyeon has a path to victory there. But Seokhyeon's takedowns are very different than BSD's. BSD was being very careful with how he set up takedowns, like using the head kick to get Rufi's hands up and then shooting under it, stuff like that. Stuff that got him out of the danger of knees and kicks and all of that. Seokhyeon kind of just shoots from no man's land. So I don't think he's going to take down Rufi, and I do think he will eventually get caught, but we'll have to see. How do you see Stiletto Bahamondes or Bahamondes Rufy. Oh, you mean Seokhyeon, I assume? That is okay. Seokhyeon, yeah, okay. I would probably pick Bahamondes over Seokhyeon. I'd probably pick Roof. I might pick Rufy over Bahamondes. That's a tough call, though. I'd pick Rufy over Bahamondes, yeah. Because despite Bahamondes' range, he tends to come in close. Okay. So, with Mirzakhanov versus Rakic. Good takedown defense from Mirzakhanov. Rakic kind of started in a way where I thought he might have a path to victory if he was able to just grind those positions until Azamat gassed out. But he didn't. He let the positions go. Azamat had great defense. And as I was saying, Azamat's just the much better boxer. So Rakic made the mistake of trying to box with him, and that ended the fight very swiftly. Azamat, a lot of people have asked me, do I think he can beat Yuri? And it's an interesting fight because he is the one person in the division besides Alex who may be capable of knocking out Yuri. But if he does not knock out Yuri in round 1, then he is doomed because he slows down, and Yuri is not going to get put away in round 2 or 3 most likely by Azamat's reduced power. And Yuri obviously does not slow down. If anything, he picks up the pace. So I wouldn't be shocked if Azamat finished Yuri in round 1, but I would probably pick Yuri by late round 2 or maybe early round 3 knockout. Rakic is the best fighter to never win since Biden took office. Fair. Ankalaev could catch Yuri. I don't think Ankalaev could because he just has no power. Azamat or Khalil? I'd say Azamat. Maybe Mateusz Rebecki versus loser of Torres Dawson. Yeah, that could be a good play. I just think the problem is the loser still probably beats him, in all honesty. But yeah, it might be the best thing to do. Azamat is overrated. I mean, I think we just saw he isn't. I think that had he lost to Rakic, we could say, okay, yeah, maybe he was overrated. Knocking out Rakic in round 1, not an easy task. Ankalaev went to a 29-28 with Rakic. Obviously, Yuri finished him, but it took 2 rounds for Yuri to figure him out and then catch him. Rakic is not a bad fighter by any means. Is it fair to say Ankalaev has no power considering he has various KO wins early in the UFC? He has no effective power against high-level competition, is how I would put it. If you're a higher weight class fighter, generally speaking, when you're fighting lower ranked fighters, you can finish them even if you don't have quote unquote power. It's when you start fighting the higher ranked guys who are not letting you just always land completely clean and such, and have actual more durability and commitment to the sport, then you see how much effective power they have, if that makes any sense. Rakic to heavyweight? Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. Reyes or Hill? I would probably lean Reyes because Hill kind of has to move forwards. So Reyes is not going to have that problem of oh, I can't fight moving forwards. Was that Azamat's pure power, or was it Rakic diving into the jab? It's some of both, for sure. But Azamat definitely does have a lot of pure power. Would you call him more of a technician with a good eye then? Yes. So Ankalaev is definitely that slow, methodical, I'm going to get reads and then start slowly punishing you type of thing. Doesn't matter though, Yuri runs into punches and Ankalaev is very accurate. I would favor Yuri, but Ankalaev could catch him here at Alex. Ankalaev hurting Alex is also a bit of an overblown narrative, because at that, the sequence in which Alex got quote-unquote rocked, a lot of people aren't slowing it down and watching it. Alex was calf kicking. So when he fell back, it looked like he was a lot more hurt than he was. And when you look at him after the round ended, he seemed okay. He walked back to the corner just fine. And he didn't seem phased when the next round started. So while it was definitely a good moment for Ankalaev, I don't think Alex was actually that rocked. Jan or Umar? I'd say Jan finishes him late. Umar still has not improved his cardio at all. Alright, so Volkov versus Almeida. Decision made me very happy because I was incredibly scared that Volkov was going to get robbed again. It's one of these fights where certain fans are going to be oh, Almeida got robbed, because they're too used to seeing wrong decisions based on control time. But even just from like the stats here, 24 significant strikes to 9, you can tell that Volkov definitely won. 123 strikes to 27 is absolutely wild. Like, I had Volkov 30-27. I'm not mad with the 29-28. It is what it is. I'll take what we can get. But yeah, no, I'm just glad Volkov didn't get robbed. And with Almeida, I feel like whenever Almeida's fighting someone who he's not going to absolutely dominate, he has no interest in taking a single risk whatsoever. And it's a problem because he's going to dominate all of these lower ranked guys. But then every time you give him a step up, he's going to have a terrible fight. And I don't know what you do about that. Like, you can just cut him, I guess, but that's just cutting someone who's pretty good. So I have mixed feelings there. Otherwise, I don't know. Volkov kind of got screwed over by the main event situation, but maybe he waits out for a title shot. I mean, it would probably be in his best interest at this point. What's up, Oracle? How have things been lately? Any luck getting a new app developer? I will get to that right after we finish the breakdown, actually. I'm okay. Hope you've been okay as well. But yeah, I'll get to that. Things are interesting right now, to say the least. All right, Umar versus Bautista. Bautista, this might be weird to say since Bautista lost to 30-27, but Bautista impressed me here. Because I was expecting Bautista to just get like straight up dominated to a 30-27, have no success whatsoever. The fact that Bautista is spazzy, as I was saying, did definitely cost him a bit because he ended up giving up side control when he didn't have to and getting controlled for a bit longer there. But he definitely created some attacks from being spazzy. So there was there is definitely a tactic there, I guess, that if you can spaz enough, you can create attacks out of it. So the toe hold initially was not something that I was anticipating by any means. Of course, the kick that turned into a knee in round 2 was kind of good. I can't fully credit Bautista there, because even though he was throwing a good attack against Umar just randomly dipped into it. I've watched that sequence so many times. Bautista just did what he was doing the entire rest of the fight with how he threw the kick, and Umar just randomly decided to slam his face into it. So, for those of you who saw my reel on it, I just think that Umar has very questionable defensive awareness, because whenever someone is actually throwing at him with intent, he seems to get clipped. So, very bad sign for him in a Merab rematch, in my opinion, because even if Merab isn't going to like one-shot knock you out or anything, he's a lot more confident in trying to hurt people with his hands now. And give him 25 minutes to do it again, I think it happens again. So if Merab versus Umar 2 happens, I'm probably going to pick Merab by TKO this time, as crazy as that might sound. Especially in the later rounds, because we saw how, and like with Umar panting so badly in the post-fight interview, imagine that was a 5-round fight with someone who can hold a higher pace than Bautista even can. It's just not a good look. Volkov should be the backup for the Gon Aspinall rematch. I agree. Is it weird that I don't see Umar beating Merab? No, not weird at all. Completely correct, in my opinion. I don't think that Umar has much a chance against Merab. Umar and Usman aren't very comfortable in the pocket. They're point strikers to a T. Yeah, that is true. I think Song would do pretty good versus Umar, am I mistaken? It's possible. I could definitely see the path to victory for Song. I just don't know if his pure takedown defense would hold up, but we have no real way of knowing that for sure. But I definitely get the vision that you're seeing there. Azamat versus Khalil. I'd lean Azamat. Alright. Dern versus Jandroba. I mean, Dern won. It was a fight. If anyone really cares more, I can go into it. If not, I'll go into the main event. Okay. This fight, single-handedly, is going to change how I approach content. And I'm going to mute for a second and drink water so I can go on this rant. Alright, so I don't know how much you guys can recognize my own or not at this point with the amount of content I've done. But this back-to-back cards, these fouls, have started to like actually piss me off. And it wasn't just the fouls themselves, it was the community reaction to it. Because if someone wants to believe that Gon would have won if the fight went on, perfectly entitled to that opinion, right? I disagree for the reasons I broke down in my reel, but you can believe Gon would have won. Yeah, we don't know if Aspinall's cardio would have held up. There are questions. It's a heavyweight fight. You can have that take. I'm not going to say you're crazy. However, if you say that Aspinall is a quitter because he didn't want to fight against a reasonable opponent while having one eye because of a legal move from his opponent, you are insane. Like, I genuinely have nothing else to say about that. I've been trying to treat everyone in the community like they have a semi-valid opinion. And what I'm realizing now is that half of the MMA community, including the fighters, are just idiots. Like, there's no other way of saying it. Why would you continue with one eye in round 1 in a fight that could potentially go 5 rounds when your opponent cheated to cause damage to you? It makes no sense. And the fact that people want to hold Aspinall to that standard, and you guys know that I've been, I don't want to say hating, but I've been like diminishing Aspinall's accomplishments, and I've been hating on his skill set, let's say, basically since the beginning. Would have aged great for me if Gon won. But it doesn't mean I'm going to start celebrating the fact that Aspinall didn't want to continue because he got eye poked. Like, what is happening here? So, to give my technical analysis of the fight, for those of you who saw the reel, you know my thoughts. I think that Aspinall blasting the leg kick when Gon went orthodox was very important because it meant that Gon basically had to stay southpaw. He did not risk going back to orthodox after eating that calf kick, and that takes away a lot of weapons for him. So not being able to switch stances is a massive issue for Gon, and the fact that Aspinall was starting to figure out how to deal with Gon's circling. So near the end, before the eye poke happened, he feinted a left hook and then came with the right straight. And that was one of the few strikes that round that really caught Gon clean. And it basically showed me that Aspinall was starting to understand Gon's movement and how to deal with it. And I really think that a finish after that was imminent because Gon wasn't really adapting or doing anything, in my opinion. Does Gon purposely cheat? I don't think he quote-unquote purposely cheats. I think he's extremely negligent, and I think we have to punish them the same, because I don't think it really matters if it's on purpose or not. People saying Tom quit don't have brain cells? Yeah, I agree. The odds for the Tom versus Gon rematch are going to be even, I reckon. I'm putting 5x my original bet on Tom next time valid. People who side against Tom for what he did have ulterior bias is valid. With the back of the head, shots and eye pokes, yes. Is it truth that there's a lot of morons at MMA having CT doesn't help? Yeah, that's true. They never admit it, but it's the only way to make sense of their behavior. Fair. And it's like 60% of the community, it's crazy. Yeah. A lot of it's just rage bait, especially on Twitter. There are no genuine opinions anymore. See, I was thinking that initially, right? I really thought it was just going to be rage bait. But then I saw a lot of fighters parroting the takes, and then I saw a lot of like actual personalities who are like quote unquote have influence in this sport starting to parrot the takes. It's actually crazy. Vieira was saying that he would have kept fighting if he'd gotten eye poked. Okay, no, he actually did not. And this is what is pissing me off also, is that people are starting to take things out of context to try to like make Aspinall look bad here. I don't even like Aspinall. I don't know why I'm like running so much defense for him. But the Yuri quote, which they decided to take wildly out of context, was after the Hill fight. Yuri got eye poked in the Hill fight, and he could not see in round 2, and he kept fighting anyway, and he finished Hill. Yuri is, and I say this as affectionately as possible, absolutely insane, and would not stop fighting no matter what. And I respect that, and I love Yuri, but it doesn't mean that Aspinall should have done the same here. Did you say Chael Sutton, Anthony Sid saying that he should have continued? Yeah, I did. Aspinall tried to top John's performance and KO Gon rather than going the path least resistance. No, I think that Gon just had a semi-good game plan to survive a bit longer of circle on the outside. And it makes sense, right? Tom isn't going to be able to line up his blitzes as easily with just like the basic 1-2 if you keep circling on the outside. So it makes sense. Tom is minus 150 now when I got it on DraftKings. Yes. Yes, he is. You see the news on how they're updating the idea for intentional or not for eye pokes. I saw they're updating something. I didn't see if they released what it was, though. Aljo too, him and Smith should be the last people to talk on the situation. Yeah, I agree. That was minus 200. Fair, yeah. Who do you favor in a future matchup, Taporia or Wellmaker? Yeah, I'd probably lean Taporia, just more well-rounded. MMA Factory in general produces a ton of fighters who foul. Yeah, that is true. Emotions fly high on both sides. The fact of the matter is we don't know what would have happened. Everyone needs to stop making rash assumptions. Tom could have fought him, run the rematch. It's not even about what would have happened. It's about the fact that they are criticizing someone for not fighting at a disadvantage for no reason. Hardcore fans are brain dead, yes. Yuri is certainly one of one. Yeah, exactly. Aljo video is so ironic. Yeah. Jones or Aspel and how. So I would still pick Jones. And I mean, it is what it is, right? I think Jones has a much better skill set, but I don't think it changes the situation. Most of these guys don't realize when you're in there and you get eye poked, the first thing that goes into your mind is, am I permanently blind in one eye? Yeah, exactly. Who's the most dangerous fighter of all time, pound for pound in general? I mean, it depends what category you're looking for. It's hard to say, like, most dangerous in general. Like, Taporia is not a bad bet because he's finished pretty much everyone, even the seemingly unfinishable people, except for Emmett, of course. But Jones was getting tagged up by 42-year-old Stipe. Stipe has very good setups in the boxing, though. So even if he was slow, his ability to tag people was still there because his skill wasn't, like, gone, if you get what I mean. I just don't really rate Aspinall's skill. Why can nobody counter Ilya? Because they're scared to, because he has one-punch knockout power, so if you make a mistake, you're going out. But if you don't commit to doing it, then that often happens anyway, so in my opinion, you do have to commit. You do have to commit, if I said that incorrectly. Actually, why is everyone ignoring the fact that Gon is the one who failed and needs to see the consequences? Yeah, I don't know. So, to answer what I was hinting at initially in terms of changing my content, generally speaking, I think that in life, humility is a good attribute to have, right? I think that, first of all, it's just good presentation of yourself. And second, it's good to always question yourself in some capacity. Like, all of us make mistakes, and it's good to have awareness that we make mistakes and have blind spots and whatever, all that BS, right? However, and I think that in my content, I kind of tried to reflect that. I try to leave some uncertainty, not say things with, like, full confidence if I'm not 100% sure, and so on. But after this stuff, where I'm seeing that a lot of the MMA fan base is just stupid, I'm going to just let myself be a bit more arrogant about things now. Because I think that my goal is to essentially create the ultimate MMA community here. And in terms of having the best analysis, having the best fighters, and so on. Those of you who are here who are fighters, I want you guys to be able to become champions. Those of you who are bettors, I want you guys to make a ton of money. Like, we essentially, I just want us to be better than every other MMA community. And I don't really care about the optics of that at this point. So, as you guys can tell by the title of this stream, we're going to try to lean in that direction a bit. I think it's a bit contrary to the personality I'm used to having, so it'll take a little bit of getting used to. But that's what I want to do going forwards. Oracle heel turn, yeah. Somewhat, yes. Good to have some confidence. You're still the best MMA analyst I've watched. Thank you. I appreciate it. We love arrogant Oracle. Appreciate it. Are you a bad guy now? Not quite. I'm not like going like chill, son, and heal here. I'm just going to not question the fact that we are going to be better than everyone else. And that doesn't mean I can't appreciate when other people have skills and what other people do, but I'm not going to question that we're going to do better anyway, if that makes any sense. Thoughts on MMA, Shay? Are you interested in a collab with him? I'd be down to collab with him. He gave me YouTube advice when I asked at one point. I appreciate him. Oracle, can you read my previous message? Where is it? Out of curiosity, not to get too into personal stuff, I've always wondered how you come across your combat knowledge, insights. Are you some sort of coach? So, yes, I have coached a bit. I did more high-level coaching actually in other sports, interestingly. I have been in combat sports my entire life as well. I'm not just a fan, if that makes any sense. But a lot of things you do learn just from observing, if you are willing to put the work in to actually study it. Thoughts on Kenny, I don't even know how to say his last name, as an analyst. So, the only thing I've seen for him was his Aspinall take, where he basically said that Aspinall quit. I forget exactly how he phrased it. So that's all my opinion of him is from. If that's what he represents, then yeah, I dislike him. All right. Would you recommend Islam Khamit versus Ilya? That doesn't really play into his strengths. It's tough for him because, yeah, that's not how he fights. I think he still has to find his opportunities to do that, but I don't think he will do it. After you start making good money again from this stuff, why not start training again and make a run to the UFC? I cannot do it anymore because of medical stuff, unfortunately. But I'm 100% going to help you guys do it if you want to. Kenny is a great example of an ulterior motive when it comes to his Tom take. Fair. Oracle, what do you think about the mental toughness Aspinall needs to have the rematch and actually prove 60% of the community wrong and all the hate coming towards him? I don't think he needs to do anything different. I think he just has to not decide, like, or not decide, but not get rage baited into overcommitting. Because if he approaches the rematch of like, oh, I need to prove people wrong and get him out of here in 1 minute, that's not going to be a good idea. But if he's calm about it and it's like, okay, I'm going to make my reads, I'm going to shut down what he was doing, I'm going to start using the feints again, make him overreactive and catch him from there, I think he can do it. Thoughts on Azmat performance looks promising in my opinion. I think he easily beat Khalil and maybe Oberg, but Yuri and Alex would be very tough. Haven't seen pressure for an extended time. Yeah, I agree with you. I think anyone who could wear on him is a problem, but those who are going to sit back, like Khalil and Oberg, yeah, he could beat, probably. As soon as you mentioned the Aspinall is a quitter narrative, I knew you were talking about Kenny. Fair. Did Ilya's grappling improve vastly since the Bryce fight, or is it overrated? I think he just hasn't displayed much. If you look at his earlier fights, it's definitely displayed more. Do you notice when fighters just ditch the game plan, and does it bother you? Yeah, sometimes I do, and it bothers me if they do it for no reason. Sometimes there is need to ditch the game plan, and if they do when they need to, fair play. But yeah, if they're having success with their game plan, then they just start brawling, which does happen sometimes, and yeah, that annoys me. I had the misfortune to watch a Kenny stream, and when he saw Enclave got crushed, he said, wow, the pressure really got him, guys. I'm pretty sure it was the right hands, yeah. Okay, yeah, so he's just one of those. Okay. Charles said he ditches game plan versus Ilya. I don't think Charles ditches game plan versus Ilya. I think he was just upset with how the fight went, and that's fine. I love Charles, regardless. But I think he was generally following the game plan. His skill set was just not the best to beat Ilya. He had a lot of the stuff you'd want. he just didn't quite have the defense against looping shots. He's always had a problem with them. I really don't like Aspinall movement at all. He looked stuck in the center and wasn't really looking to trying to effectively pressure, and he was falling Gon a lot, but I do see him catching Gon later. Yeah, Aspinall could definitely learn to deal with the circling better and had gone off, like you're saying. I still think it would have worked, though, in all honesty. Won't lie, most of the community is toxic. Yeah, I agree. I think Gary will look to finish Bilal with a knee up the middle. Bilal doesn't have head movement when he shoots his takedown, so knee is perfect. That's quite possible. It was a skill set to beat Ilya. I mean, if he stays disciplined, John Silva is a skill set, but I can't favor him right now. Who genuinely wins in Gary versus Bilal? Gary. All right, so because I have ranted for a while, we will get to the breakdown now, but then I will definitely get back to everyone else's questions when we're done. So starting with Alencar versus Carnelossi. So Alencar is technically a BJJ fighter, but she kind of just fights more as a control wrestler. So once she gets the fight down, she'll land a little bit of ground and pounds, but otherwise just look to maintain like guard or half guard and just win on points. On the feet, she is improving. Before she only had like sloppy hooks, now she's throwing like a 1-1-2, stuff like that. It's nothing that has any power or significance, but at least it's there, technically. Carnelossi is kind of just a brawler. She basically just like walks forwards and spams hooks. That's the majority of what she's going to do in a fight. Carnelossi also cannot defend a takedown for her life historically. There is a possibility that she has more success here because Alencar is so reliant on the takedowns. But I do have to favor going with history and be like, okay, she has like, 14% takedown defense, and Alencar is going to try to take her down. So Alencar will probably win decision here. So I'm going to say Alencar wins a 30-27 decision. Phil Rowe versus Seokhyeon Ko. This, in my opinion, should be like potentially the co-main event. I'm kind of annoyed it's this low. But so Phil Rowe is, so I would say, basically a Muay Thai striker. He is a little bit too calm in terms of when and how he throws. He really takes his time. When he throws hard, but because of his reach and his length, he is very used to like being able to throw kind of sloppily. And what I mean from that is he'll like throw from far out or from his hips and weird stuff like that. That works just because he's out of the range of his opponent, but is very fundamentally bad, and if they close the distance, it's a problem for him. This is part of why he was getting caught against Losa. Losa was just jumping in, and then Rowe would like let his hands go out wildly, and then Losa would just catch him. Rowe is kind of known at this point for the third round comeback finishes. Because of the fact that he is so calm, he doesn't really expend that much energy, and he has the ability to use it in the third round to push to get the comeback. Just the fact that he's had to come back so many times is not the best look in my opinion. Also, when he does get taken down, even though sometimes he's able to get up because of his length and just abuse that in weird ways, he is a bit prone to just laying on his back and like kind of looking for BJJ stuff and not having any real urgency. On the other side, Seokhyeon Ko is a very interesting fighter. And I say that because he's evolved significantly just within his last two fights. On Contender Series, he was a big underdog, but evolved enough to the point that he was able to win that, basically just by being a bit more technically clean than his opponent. His grappling didn't look spectacular, though. Like, you could tell his wrestling existed, and his grappling, well, yeah, his wrestling and grappling existed, but it was nothing that would, like, stand out to you. Then it seems like he straight up just uploaded judo to his consciousness somehow before the Oban Elliott fight, and was somehow just chucking him around like he was an amateur. One of the most confusing things to me. Ko winning that fight didn't shock me. Like, the algorithm actually picked Ko to win, surprisingly, which aged very well to say the least. But it's how he won. I did not expect him to just out-grapple Elliott for 3 rounds. So it's going to be very difficult to pick against someone with that rate of evolution. Because if he can keep improving, like, a fraction of his skill set every fight at that rate, he's going to go very far. On the feet, he is heavy-handed and he throws like it. He has a very strange stance where he keeps his hands out to the side and just leaves his chin straight up, but I think it kind of like baits his opponent forwards and he tries to counter that with the lead hook and such. He calls himself the Korean Tyson, I believe, and I think it is because of his hook-heavy game. Like when he does try to pull you in, he'll throw the lead hook into uppercut, stuff like that. So kind of Tyson-esque, it does make sense. He has been adding more straight shots into his game, which I do like. Against Elliott, we saw the double jab cross, stuff like that. And even though it was mostly on the ground, when it was on the feet, it was more fundamentally sound than he had looked in the past. So I am going to pick Ko here, and I think he could probably catch Rowe sleeping and possibly knock him out early here. So I'm going to say Ko wins by first round knockout. Coach's big brother to Oban? Yeah, it felt like it. You think Onama is too chinnable? We'll get to that. Okay, Ardelean versus Ruiz. So, Ardelean is basically a pressure boxer. She has other stuff in her skill set. She can wrestle, she can throw calf kicks, etc. But for the most part, she's just going to walk forwards and throw combos. She doesn't deal with circling very well. She will just follow you. She will not cut you off at all. But she is tough, she is non-stop, and she is relatively physical for the division. Ruiz is basically a pure wrestler. I think she was a wrestling champion or something at some point, but she is very small for the weight class, and she's also very limited in how she gets her takedowns. She kind of just pushes people to the fence by spamming hooks, and then looks to get a throw on them. She doesn't really have like the traditional double leg, single leg, etc. I think that's going to be a problem in this matchup, because I don't really see her pushing Ardelean back to the fence. Ardelean has more firepower in the hands, and overall, like, if Ruiz is just going to be hook spamming, Ardelean might just catch her and put her away, in all honesty. Then I'm actually going to pick Ardelean by TKO, even in a WMMA matchup here. Ko's Sambat background is legit, he's going to go far. Fair enough, yeah, very possible. Ketlen Vieira versus Norma Dumont. So, Ketlen is a heavy-handed, I guess you could say, counter-striker. She really wants to sit down on like hard lead hooks and overhands. She will also push you against the fence and kind of like grind for takedowns, but usually they don't come, and she just ends up with like control time against the fence, and that's it. She is capable of hurting people if she does land because of how much she loads, but she is not extremely technical in how she sets it up. Against Kayla Harrison, we did see that her takedown defense is pretty wild, especially if her opponent starts to slow down at all. So, in pretty much any fight with Ketlen Vieira, you do have to expect that takedowns are going to be a kind of non-factor against her if Kayla Harrison could not finish her on the ground, of all people. Norma Dumont is a very versatile fighter, so she'll basically just fight where her opponent does not want to fight. Against Durandamy, she just took her down repetitively. Against Dumont, she just circled on the back foot because that gym has not figured out how to cage cut at all. She is relatively technical with like 1-2s and such. Her boxing is solid, and her movement is pretty good, especially for this weight class. This should be pretty like easy for Dumont, in my opinion, just because of how limited Vieira is. Dumont's probably just going to move around, poke, not get caught by the big shots, and win a 30-27 decision here, in my opinion. The description is hilarious. I'm glad. Ante Jubilee low-key KOs Islam out cold. 100%. Not gonna lie, Jubilee's lost his all killed age well. It was a fight where it was like, it was technically a good look for Seokhyeon, but it was also such an early stoppage that I would have liked to see what happened if it went longer. Even though Seokhyeon would have very likely won, to say the least. I did want to see what would happen. Like, I wanted to see Seokhyeon get pressed a bit more. Is Shavkat too big for Ilya? No. Because Shavkat has no head movement and very little defense, Ilya should probably chin him. Okay, so our favorite serial criminal versus Donte Johnson. So, Donte Johnson on Contender Series debuted at heavyweight. Now, he has fought at light heavyweight before as well, and he is very small for heavyweight. It says he's 6'2" here. In other places, it said he's 5'8". I don't know which is true. I guess we'll see when we see them in the actual fight. But that's a pretty big discrepancy, so I would like to know which of those is correct. Donte Johnson kind of just moves forwards with solid head movement and then spams hooks in the pocket. Sometimes he'll throw across as well, so I shouldn't say just hooks, but he's really trying to get into the pocket and knock you out there. Now, the concerning thing for him here, besides the fact that he's dropping 2 weight classes in the manner of weeks, is the fact that when you're used to fighting heavier fighters, that strategy works very well. Like, if you can close the distance and get past their reach, yeah, you'll be able to land the hooks. But when you're moving down a weight class to someone who's, like, not gonna be as rangy, and in general is, like, able to understand people trying to get into the pocket more than heavyweights do, that's not necessarily gonna work as well. Dumas is really just a points fighter. I mean, he's going to try to throw technical from the outside. He's going to throw jabs. He's going to throw like lead leg high kicks, stuff like that. He's really just going to poke unless he is open for a takedown. Then he'll get you down. And even on the ground, he's not going to really look for like submissions or much ground and pound. He's just mostly going to win via control time. The biggest problem for Dumas is that when he is throwing, he leaves his chin straight up in the air, which could be a problem because let's say Dumas throws like a lead leg like high kick and then Johnson just blocks that and jumps in with a blitz. I would not be shocked if Johnson caught him here. But with all the factors considered, everyone's being like, oh, Dumas sucks, Johnson just chins him, which is possible, don't get me wrong. But given the fact that he's moving down 2 weight classes and has never fought someone even at the skill of Dumas, as weird as that is to say, I'm going to lean Dumas winning by decision here. And that could age very badly. I would not be shocked if Johnson knocked him out cold in the first, 60 seconds. But Dumas is not a terrible fighter. He might not be spectacular, but he's very capable of winning this. Even in the Reese fight, I thought Reese was going to walk right through him, but Reese was missing. And that's not just Reese missing. It's of course because Dumas had reasonable movement for as long as that fight lasted. Now I know we didn't get to see much, so I could be overreading into it, but it did feel like he had improved that aspect of his game a little bit. But yeah, I'm going to say 29-28 decision, and we'll see what happens. I don't know how Dumas is going to get respect from Donte early. I don't think he will. I think he's just going to have to survive round 1. I don't want to be rude, but you're a little too high on Ilya. I respect your opinion, but I think the size of welterweights will be too much for Ilya. I don't think you're right, because again, Ilya is one of the fighters I've criticized the most. So I don't think I have any bias towards him. I've actually been very critical of his skill set in general, but there's just way too much of a skills gap between him and someone like Shavkat. For size to matter, you have to have somewhat in the same realm of skills, and they just don't. Ilya is just a much better fighter, so it is what it is. Would you have picked Nick Klein against Donte? Probably not, because Klein is very reliant on the wrestling, and I have heard that Johnson has a solid wrestling background, so I think Johnson could probably catch Klein. But Dumas is much more willing to poke on the outside and just move around than Klein is. DC is 5'9". Yeah, but DC didn't move down weight classes. Well, okay, technically he did, but he didn't move down that far to the point at which it's a completely different fight style. How is Dumas' footwork going to be affected by the ankle monitor? We will find out. Out of all the heavyweights left, who else can Walter get a heel hook on? Maybe Tybura, honestly. What made you pick DDP over Khamzat? I feel like I've answered this many times, but Khamzat, of course, had the tendency to go all out for the finish early. If he did that against DDP, I do think DDP would have gotten the finish later. Khamzat, good for him, changed his strategy, slowed it down, was willing to fight to a boring decision. Fair play, so he takes that. What do you think of Aspinall's kicking game against Surreal? We didn't see much technical breakdown from that fight. So, I thought that it was fine. I mean, it made sense. He stopped Gon from going orthodox with that calf kick, which was very intelligent to do. What I did take from that fight is, even though I still think heavyweight sucks, maybe those two aren't quite as bad as I thought, because they did both show some like intelligent stuff that fight. Like Aspinall was using feints more effectively than I expected him to, and Gon was using his circling a bit more effectively than I expected him to. If Yuri went to heavyweight, how would he do against Tom? I think Yuri would sleep Tom. Hamza fight IQ is greater than DDP fight IQ. I don't agree with that. I think Hamza just had a much more simple game plan, and so DDP had to game plan directly around that, which he did not do correctly. Yuri is like 210. Yeah, Yuri's not the biggest. Why would you pick Yuri? Just more technical, and used to fighting much more technical competition. Alright, so Kwamba versus Chung Ho Lee. So Kwamba is kind of like a Muay Thai striker in how he throws, but he also is much more willing to move a lot around on the outside and strike on the back foot than a Muay Thai striker usually is. So the large majority of his striking game is just 1-2s on the back foot. He's just going to circle, wait until you come in, try to catch you coming in, and so on. He, of course, can and does throw other things, but it's kind of like if he has to. If he could, the entire fight, he would just back up and throw the 1-2s. He got caught by Lucas Almeida multiple times because of the fact that even though he can catch you with a 1-2, if he doesn't, his defense kind of evaporates. So he throws the 1-2, and then if you're still throwing, he can get caught. He's also very simple to figure out, which is a problem in my opinion. He has limited wrestling, but it's nothing special. On the other side with Chung Ho Lee, he calls himself the Korean Khabib, but the Korean Merab would be a lot more accurate here. The way Lee fights is he just always doing stuff. He will just blitz in, throw like 30 hooks in 5 seconds, then shoot a takedown. He doesn't even care if he gets you down. He will like fully be willing that you reverse him and take him down, and then he'll just fight to reverse position. Like, he does not care at all. And then he'll just continuously force scrambles and sequences until he gets positioned to finish you. He's basically just going to break you. That's all his game plan is. It's not the most technical, but it is wildly entertaining, and it is effective because he can keep up a crazy pace for 15 minutes. This is an interesting fight because we have someone who's going to break you versus someone who's just going to fight very technical on the outside. I would not be shocked if Kwamba was able to catch Lee coming in and either put him away or do that enough times to win a decision. But I think I do have to favor the more aggressive fighter here, who I know is just going to keep fighting no matter what. So I'm going to pick Lee to get a TKO here, because I think he's going to be able to just basically break Kwamba. I think he wants to be there more than Kwamba does. By the way, thoughts on people hating on John Silva after his loss to Diego? People just wanted to dislike John Silva and wanted to mock him after that. It is what it is. I don't love it, but people have their opinions. I don't think it's as bad as the whole Aspinall thing, because Aspinall thing was not his fault at all. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't see the points in continuously trying to mock a fighter who mostly did their best in the fight. Questionable, like, decision-making because of emotions? 100%. But it's not like Silva didn't train, didn't try to fight. It's not like you pulled in Almeida and just tried to lay on him for 25 minutes. So, yeah, I don't personally agree, but it is what it is. All right. Billy Elikana versus Kevin Christian. I will say this. I don't know how or why they let Kevin Christian into the UFC, because his Contender Series fight was just terrible. Like, him and his opponent both looked horrific. They were just throwing wild stuff with zero technique whatsoever. And then Christian got taken down without much resistance, and then eventually just found a submission there. Like, I understand that Christian is very big. He's 6'7" at 205. and he has a very long reach. He has power in what he throws, don't get me wrong. If he connects with anything, he's knocking someone out. His technique is horrific, though. So, you guys have probably figured out my pick without me even breaking down Elikana. But to break down Elikana, he is going to fight on the outside for the most part. He's kind of a counter striker. He's a southpaw, so he's basically going to try to walk you into the left hand a lot of the time. He'll throw a lot of stuff out at range, he'll throw the teeps and all of that, and that's basically to try to bait you in and then get you to open yourself up for the finish. He does have takedowns. Sometimes I feel like he uses them more than he should, because on the ground he isn't like spectacular. He can maintain control kind of, but like I do feel like he forces the wrestling where he shouldn't. Elikana's weakness seems to be when someone is going to pressure him and mix in takedowns continuously, because then he can't get his reads on the counters if someone just keeps mixing the takedowns and pressuring. That was his other loss besides Guskov. And then Guskov is Guskov. He's a solid fighter, so nothing wrong with losing that in my opinion. Yeah, I'm going to say Elikana wins this easy first round knockout. Christian should not be in the UFC. When you say Muay Thai striker in terms of MMA, do you refer more to traditional Muay Thai or Western kickboxing with elbows? So I'm referring to how they throw punches. So when you see how they throw punches in kickboxing or Muay Thai, it's a little bit more fluid, while in kickboxing or boxing rather, it's a little bit more fluid. While in Muay Thai, it has a lot of snap and it's very stiff. Now, that generates a lot of power, but it means that you have to commit to strikes and you can't really alter things mid-combo or mid-thought. How do you think Prime Connor does against guys like Usman Woodley? Honestly, I think Connor could beat them. I think they both had openings. There's a chance they just both like blast doubled and took him down, but honestly, Usman and Woodley, for a lot of their careers, did most of their best work on the feet. So I do feel like the wrestling threat's a little bit overrated. Okay, Nascimento versus Durden. So Nascimento is a BJJ first fighter. He always wants to work to the takedown into the back from there. On the feet, though, he has progressively technical striking. It is not the most dangerous, and it's mainly just meant to push you to the fence so he can get the takedown. But he's not just going to hook spam to get you to the fence. He will throw like actual combos to try to get you there. His offense is better than his defense, so he is open to counters, especially when he just does try to push you back to the fence. But unless you have like reasonable power for flyweight, it's probably not going to matter. Durden has, in my opinion, devolved a lot. Because if we look earlier in Durden's career, he was able to put up like a ton of takedown numbers and kind of win fights off of that. Now he seems to get fatigued much earlier into fights, which I don't actually understand, but that's what's happening. Durden also has a paper chin. Like, if you connect with anything, he's hurt. He also has pillow hands, and the combination is not spectacular. So, Durden basically has to be perfect in a fight, because he's not going to finish you, and he can get finished very easily. He has reasonable volume striking and grappling and everything. Like, his technique is not really the issue. It's just the fact that he, again, has to be perfect. And we saw that against Bruno Silva, where Durden was just styling on him for like 7.5, 8 minutes, and then Silva just lands one punch and puts him away because Durden had to be perfect and he wasn't. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Nascimento getting a submission, but I actually think that Nascimento might hurt him on the feet first because Durden just does not have a chin anymore. I don't know if he's just taking too much damage in his career or what the issue is, but maybe he needs to go to like 135 permanently or something like that. He needs a change in his career. Something is not working. Durden is an overachiever. He fights hard, but he lacks talent. Yeah, I agree. Do you think MMA gyms should drill the jab just as extensively as boxing gyms? Yeah, for sure. What are your thoughts on Cejudo saying that Khabib beats Alex at 185? I understand why he's saying that, but I don't think I agree. I might have to think about it more, but my first instinct would be that Alex wins. But I also don't think that Cejudo, like, people are correct about Cejudo being completely insane for saying that, because I definitely understand his logic. Because Khabib could jump on the single leg from distance, like literally just dive at it, and then chain wrestle you from the fence and go from there. So he didn't have as much a danger as someone, say, like Ankalaev trying to get to this shot. And it wasn't the same. Like, Ankalaev only really has the double leg. Like, his single legs are not spectacular. I know he hit like one against Jan, but in general, they're not spectacular. Khabib could work on the single a lot more. He could do a lot more things. If he needed to throw you, he could do that as well. So he had a much better chance than a lot of people will think, but I probably still don't agree with Cejudo there. Islam or DDP/Hamzat at 185? I'd say DDP/Hamzat most likely. What do you think about Durden's takedown defense? I feel like he's really gonna... I don't know, I'm not sure what you meant to say. He's really going for it, maybe? Because he's 1-4 in the last 5 now. Durden's takedown defense is relatively solid. The problem, again, is he's just is most likely not going to be perfect enough. Who do you think will perform better, Aspinall versus Gon in the rematch, since Gon doesn't have KO power? The step and elbows could win in the fight. I'm going to lean towards Aspinall still. I think that Aspinall just has more options in general. Even though Gon may be the more technical fighter, the fact that Aspinall has the one-shot knockout power and Gon doesn't makes a massive difference. Also, the takedown threat is there for Aspinall when it really isn't for Gon. Aldo or Khabib at 155. In 3 rounds, I'd say Aldo. 5 rounds gets a bit questionable. You think Morales can TKO Brady in 1? I don't think so. Wouldn't shock me, but I don't think so. Isaac Dulgarian versus Yadier Delvaj. So Isaac Dulgarian was an All-American wrestler, and he fights like it. He's just going to run across the octagon, shoot a takedown. He's probably going to shoot on the double. He will switch after that, but mainly he does want to get the double. When he gets you down, he is going to use the body lock a lot better than most American wrestlers do. A lot of the problem that American wrestlers have, in my opinion, is that they really stop, like, trying to control position correctly when the fight gets down. Dulgarian doesn't necessarily have that problem. He will lock his hands, he will like drag you around if he needs to advance position, then he'll start going to work with the elbows, try to pass, and so on. So his ground game is a lot more advanced than a lot of American wrestlers in that sense, which does make him interesting. On the feet, from what we've seen, he just has hook spam. Like, he hasn't really shown anything else. His cardio is a bit questionable, as we saw against C-Rod. Part of that is because of how high his output will be in round 1 and such, but if you can continuously create scrambles, there is a high chance that he slows down as the fight goes along, because he will use a lot of energy trying to control and such. Yadier Delvaj is a much more well-rounded fighter. He uses power for pretty much everything, but he does try to keep a good diversity with it. So, like, even though he looks like he might be a hook spammer, just like based on his physique and such, he will throw like double jab cross, stuff like that. We have a lot of people on this card who really love the double jab cross. I don't know why, but it is a bit stiff. So on the feet, I do question Delvaj's defense, but his offense is somewhat nuanced, I will say that, at least more than Dulgarian's, because he is going to try to put things together, get you against the fence, and unload properly, and so on. He does also like to wrestle. I haven't seen as much of his wrestling as I have seen Dulgarian, so I'm not quite sure his preference is there, but he does seem to like to go for the double leg as well, and then potentially switch to the single. On the ground, he is more so looking for the submission than Dulgarian is. He will land some ground and pound, but like his ultimate goal is to like take the back and choke you out from there. Sometimes on the feet, he will pull guillotine. His guillotine, from the limited times I have seen it used, does look fairly solid. He didn't quite get it on Contender Series, but it was very close. Delija does slow down a little bit, but then like he'll kind of take 30 seconds to a minute off and then just start throwing hard again. So he's going to be able to push a hard 3 rounds. This is a tough one to predict, but I'm actually going to lean towards Delija because he is more well-rounded. And if he survives round 1, which I do think he can, he's going to be at a massive advantage here, in my opinion. Dulgarian, once he starts slowing down, is going to open up the opportunities for Delija submissions and specifically the guillotine. So I do think Delija is going to have a tough round 1, but then in round 2, he's going to find the opportunity for the guillotine, and a slightly slower and more fatigued Dulgarian is not going to be able to defend it. Skip Radtke versus Frunza. No, you are correct. I did. I will go back to that. Thoughts on Volk versus Holloway at 155 now. I think now Holloway could probably win it. Just because Volk is definitely slowing down a step. Alright, Radtke versus Daniel Frunza. Okay, actually, so question before we continue. And I should probably put up a poll for this. Like, how much detail do you guys want until we get to the main event? Because I don't know if it might just be better to gloss through some of this quickly and then get to questions, because these are not the most interesting fights in the world. So I'll wait for you guys to vote, and then we'll continue. I would say low detail in the main event, but go back and explain in detail after if someone asks. That's somewhat fair. If we end up at even, which it seems like we might, then I might take some of that approach. I wanted to vote in medium detail. Yeah, if we end up with a very close poll, which it looks like we're going to have, then I will probably go with medium detail. By split decision, seems like it. Alright, I'll wait another like 10 or so seconds. Exactly 50-50. Oh, no, back to 50-50 again. Alright, we'll end the poll here. Exactly 50-50. Okay. So we'll do medium detail. So Radtke versus Frunza. So Radtke initially was thought of as a grappler, interestingly. In the UFC, he has not had much success with his takedowns. But on the feet, he is going to walk forwards and basically just throw combos at you. The emphasis in his combos is his lead left hook. The lead left hook is very fast and powerful. The biggest problem with Radtke is when he throws the combos, he doesn't really reset anything properly, so he's very open to getting countered. That's what happened against Malott. Like, they were basically throwing the same combos, but Malott just put his guard up mid-combo, Radtke didn't. So they both threw the same thing. Radtke hit the guard, Malott landed clean and put Radtke out. So Radtke's offense is great. His defense is a little bit questionable. He does have the backup, of course, of he could probably shoot, maybe just push someone against the fence and then hold things out there. But if he wasn't able to take down, what was his name? Who did he out wrestle in his first fight? Oh yeah, it was Blood Diamond. If you're not like taking down and subbing Blood Diamond fairly easily, then you're probably not going to have that much success wrestling in the UFC realistically. Daniel Frunza is a power puncher who's basically just going to high guard in between bursts. So he's going to walk forwards, keep the high guard up, he'll throw like 3 wild shots, then reset to the high guard. Definitely better than no defense, but obviously when you're that dependent on the high guard and you're throwing wildly, you can be caught. Because he's so dependent on the high guard, he can get caught by stuff like uppercuts up the middle, hooks, overhands around the top, stuff like that. Frunza's fight against Reese was a really bad look in my opinion, because even though I like Reese's style, it doesn't seem like he's the highest level fighter in the UFC, unfortunately. Like, he just got absolutely styled on by Axel Sola on like a few days' notice coming up a weight class. So obviously MMA math doesn't always hold, but not the best look for Frunza overall. I'm going to say here, with the dependency on the high guard, Radtke will probably be able to march forwards and just throw the lead hook around the high guard and catch him. So I'm going to take Radtke by first round TKO here. Radtke is in this weird position where he's a reasonable fighter, but he's like kind of like Rebecki, right? Just not good enough to be in the rankings, but good enough that you could probably handle most of the people outside the rankings. So might hit kind of like that gatekeeper role without even having the name value, which is kind of an unfortunate position to be in, because the UFC tends to only like gatekeepers when they do have the name value. But we'll see what happens. Maybe he gets a few highlight KOs and proves that he's better now. We'll see. Wells versus Gorimbo. So Jeremiah Wells is a very explosive fighter, which you can kind of just see looking at him. But everything he does has like 300% power in it. When he throws on the feet, it is wild. But every single thing he throws has the ability to flatline someone. He's going to throw like wild hooks, overhands, uppercuts. It's nothing technical. It's just very scary because how fast it comes at you. Like, most people who are brawling like that, it's powerful, but it's not that fast. Wells, especially in round one, is fast. The problem with how wild it is of course, if someone just throws down the center, then he can definitely get caught and hurt badly. That's what Semmelsberger did, and dropped him like 2 or 3 times, something crazy. In the wrestling, he's just going to try to explode and just knock you over. He'll shoot the blast double, try to throw you down. If you get into any like 50-50 situation, he's just going to yank on the underhook and try to rip you to the ground. So everything is so power intensive that by round 3, he definitely does hard gas out if the fight goes that long. So in the Max Griffin fight, it seemed like he was very scared of gassing because he got finished due to gassing in his previous fight and just did nothing the entire fight. So I don't know which Wells we're going to end up with, but either he's going to be exploding constantly and erratically, or he's just going to do nothing for like 15 minutes and go to a close decision. On the other hand, with Gorimbo is somewhat similar on the feet, but more technical. So he is throwing a lot of power into everything he does, and his defense is a little bit questionable, but he's throwing more technical strikes in the pocket. Like, he's throwing like shorter hooks, and even though it is like mostly hooks, overhands, and stuff like that, it's all like controlled, unlike Wells, who's just like throwing it wildly. Gorimbo's not quite as explosive as Wells, though, so it's not necessarily going to put someone out even if he does land. He did get a highlight reel knockout against, I think, Rodriguez, but against like higher level competition doesn't necessarily work as well. When he throws, he is very open as well, though, because same issue with he isn't really defending himself as he's throwing. So this fight could have a very random like first round like highlight reel flatline from either one of them, just because of how this matchup is made. I think that's why this matchup was made. But this could be a lot more interesting than it is on paper. If he doesn't hurt you badly with the striking early, he will transition to the wrestling. He's kind of willing to just hold you against the fence a lot of the fight and then drag you to the ground with like a body lock or double leg, whatever he can get a hold of. He has a variety of takedowns, so it's not like he's going to be too predictable there. Once the fight is on the ground, though, it's nothing too dangerous. Like, he will go for the RNC if it's there, but he's not going to really chase it. His ground and pound isn't spectacular, so he's a lot more dangerous on the feet, even if his grappling is technically the more technical part of his game. I'm going to pick Gorimbo, and I'm going to pick him by 3rd round submission. Despite the fact that he doesn't usually have submissions, I think that in a high-paced fight here, which I have a feeling we're going to see with the wrestling, because neither of them is going to want to risk getting knocked out, Wells is going to fatigue. And I think when Wells fatigues significantly, Gorimbo's going to be able to lock up a submission. So 3rd round submission, I'm going to say rear naked choke for Gorimbo. I finally got here before falling asleep. Good to see you here. Who you got for the Tom rematch? I'm still leaning Tom. This Matthew Selmensberger judging was pretty bad. Yeah, I agree. Waldo Cortes-Acosta versus Ante Delija. So I'll start with Ante Delija, actually. So Delija for a heavyweight has very, almost ridiculous hand speed. Like, his combinations are extremely fast. He is a well-rounded fighter in general. He has takedowns. He has the ability to go 15 or even 25 minutes. But like the main highlight of the game is his blitzes. The biggest problem, well, there's a few problems for Delija in my opinion. The fact that he's so reliant on using the hand speed does leave him open to the counters because of the fact that he's just throwing combos and he's committing to throwing the full combo when he starts throwing it. There's very little adaptability, very little like chance that he's going to back out, slip something, and then change things up, etc. The other problem is if he gets clipped, he seems to just decide not to fight anymore. Like, he got hit by a body kick that didn't put him away or anything, but he just kind of let the guy finish him like 2 minutes later and seemed to not want to fight after taking it. Then he got barely clipped by an overhand as well, and it did hurt him seemingly more than the body kick, to be fair, but there was no like, oh, I'm going to shoot a takedown to stall out, I'm going to like try to throw bombs to get him to back off. It was just like, oh, I'm just going to stop fighting and let him finish me. Delija also really loses his power after round 1. So even though he's very capable of going 3 or 5 rounds, I think the latest finish he got was in round 2, and even that was against low-level fighters. Against higher-level fighters, he seems to not have any finishing ability after first round. Waldo Cortes-Acosta is a lot less flashy of a striker as Ante Delija. He is mostly just going to throw like fundamental stuff, just jabs, walk around, throw a few kicks. He will throw overhands a lot. He'll throw like the Bo Nickel overhand to the body, except to be fair, he'll throw it a lot more narrow, so it's not like the crazy path to the body. It's just a bit more power, but a bit more time consumed. His takedown defense is solid. I did not expect him to do that well against Spivak in the grappling, so the fact that he was able to stuff Spivak's takedowns for the most part does make me think that this is going to be a purely stand-up fight, that Delija is not really going to have success taking him down. On the feet, he is surprisingly durable. Yes, I know Pavlovich isn't the person that he was before, but he took some pretty big shots from Pavlovich and just did not really care. He recovered pretty quickly as well, even after getting rocked. So I don't really see Delija putting him out here. And because I don't see Delija putting him out here, and I think that Acosta is just a little bit higher level than anyone who Delija has really faced, I think that Cortes-Acosta can get him out of here. I think that after round 1, Acosta is going to start picking up the volume like he always does in the round 2s. And I think he's probably going to find an overhand that clips Delija. And if history plays out the same, then as soon as Delija gets clipped by an overhand, he's just going to quit and allow Acosta to finish him. So Acosta by second round TKO is the prediction there. I heard a lot about Wells, but very little on Gorimbo. Fair. Acosta is one of the most durable fighters in the UFC has ever seen to this point. Yeah, I agree. What about Waldo's emotes? I mean, maybe they could piss off Delija enough to bait him into a counter. We'll find out, I guess. Alright, main event time. It's kind of unfortunate, in my opinion, that this fight is a main event, because it really did not have to be. And what I mean by that is that if this was like a main card opener on a pay-per-view, everyone would be like, oh, that's a spectacular fight. But because of the fact that it's like a main event in a mediocre fight night to begin with, it kind of just feels mediocre. But that being said, I am definitely looking forward to it. Steve Garcia is like the most all-in striker you will ever see at the lower weight classes. Part of the reason he's able to generate so much power is that he's willing to lower his head forwards when he throws, so he's taking all of his weight with him. The problem with that is that leaves his chin relatively open because he's basically presenting it to you. So it's a lot easier to chin him because of that, and he got dropped, I think, 3 times by like Mahashate before getting finished there. So it's a very killer be killed strategy, but very entertaining to watch. His kicks on the outside used to be very dangerous for him, in my opinion, in the sense that he'd throw them without much timing or setup, and then people would end up just coming in and tagging him because of it. He's kind of pulled back on that a bit, especially in the Cater fight. It seemed like he was timing his kicks a bit better to not just leave massive openings. So hopefully for his sake, that is an actual trajectory. When he blitzes in, it is mainly going to be with the hooks in the pocket, but he really does understand how to navigate the pocket. So unless you can catch him, he is probably going to be better in that brawl there. He has offensive wrestling, but rarely uses it unless he really has to. And in general, he's just going to be very difficult to take down and or control. So he will nullify the wrestling more so than employ it as like a tactic. Onama is it seemed like he was going to be a scary striker when he started in the UFC. But then as like he got more and more experience, we kind of just saw that he's way too relaxed in the octagon. And what I mean by that is that, like, yes, you do not want to force a knockout shot. A great way to not find a knockout is just to try to force it with everything you throw. But he's a little bit too lax in waiting for the knockout shot, that he's not really going to try to set it up even. He'll just wait until you give like a massive opening and then kind of counter. He will push forwards, like he will throw, he will burst and so on, but he's not really doing it to finish you. He's kind of just doing it to fill the time and then wait until you open up something very big. His strengths, in my opinion, are the check hook when his opponent does come in, and of course just blasting takedowns if he really needs to. I did not like the Giga fight because he was getting outclassed on the feet for the most part, and then on the grounds just was for the most part holding Giga, and Giga's an older fighter who you should be trying to finish to get like your highlight reel built up and a better reputation so you can start pushing into the rankings. The biggest problem for Onama defensively is that he's another fighter who's sometimes very dependent on the high guard, but he doesn't really use it properly. So when you see guys who use the high guard properly, like say Petr Yan, right? They move the high guard in accordance to their opponents. So if their opponent is moving at an angle in which they're going to throw a hook, Yan will dip the guard to the side and so on. So you have to, like, the high guard is not a static position. It is an active movement that you need to use to intercept shots and then throw your own counters. Onama doesn't really do that. He just holds the high guard in place. So I think especially with Garcia's tendency to try to get into the pocket and land the hooks there, I could see him going around the high guard, hurting Onama, and then putting him away just by continuously throwing a barrage of punches. Because of the fact that, again, Garcia takes the very risky approach, though, I can't be wildly confident here. So I'm picking Garcia by round 1 TKO, but the only thing that I am a bit more confident in is that we're going to see probably a round 1 finish. If not that, then probably round 2. I don't see Garcia really like changing his strategy and holding back, because even when he was in the prelims, he was just trying to kill everyone, especially in a main event spot. I do think he's going to try to get another quick highlight so he can really jump in the rankings. But this is a fight that I am excited for, and especially if Garcia does win, we're going to get some very interesting matchups. I'm not as high on Onama, even though he definitely could win this, but we'll see what happens. Garcia or John Silva? John Silva, because Garcia is not defensively responsible enough. Acosta versus Delija should have been the main event, in my opinion. 6 versus number 9. I mean, technically speaking, probably, but it's just not interesting enough, in my opinion. I was literally saying this is a good main card opener. Yeah, I think a lot of us are thinking the same. They both earned a main event fight with great performances. I would not quite say that Onama's performance was great, but Garcia I do agree with. Who are you most confident in this card? Good question. I would say probably Dumont, even though it's WMMA. I'm fairly confident in Ko as well. then Nascimento should win, but he's a bit inactive, which is the only concern here, is that like maybe there's something about his kit that we haven't really seen. Radtke also should win, but it's not like a high enough level fight for me to be crazy confident. JDM's high guard is beautiful, I agree. Delija is more skilled. Question is if Ante is tough enough to win. I'm not sure I would say he's more skilled, but I would say he's more well-rounded. So I get what you're thinking, though. I do think at that. Do you believe a lot of fighters use a high guard as their latch-ditch answer to punches they haven't read coming? I mean, high guard is kind of like an active choice because you can't really use it as a last ditch, because if you're, say, like using a long guard or your hands are down or something like that, you're not going to be able to bring it back quickly enough as a last ditch. But I do think sometimes it's kind of like the lazy defense. It's like, oh, I should be defending, but I don't really want to do anything intricate, so I'm just going to leave my hands here. Who do you think Onama beats in the top 15, if anyone? Honestly, I don't really think anyone. Do you think Onama is chinny, or his defensive holes just get him caught a lot? I think it's his defensive holes, because I do think he's been hit pretty hard and not gotten put out. So I don't think he's chinny. But I do think the fact that he can sometimes be overly reliant on that guard's a problem. Who do you think John Silva should fight next, and who would win? So I've heard he's going to fight Giga, which technically makes sense, but I kind of just wish Giga had a more reasonable fight to retire on. But yeah, I'll pick John Silva if that fight actually does happen. Who do you think Bilal beats in the top 15 of welterweights? Honestly, he might fight Usman if Usman's striking is not much better than it looks against Buckley. Also, did you see Brian Battle's performance in Dirty Boxing tonight? I did not. How do you look? Are you picking JDM via TKO or decision against Islam? Probably TKO. So someone was asking earlier about the progress with the app. And yeah, so I am talking to 2 studios right now. I have a meeting with one of them on Monday. The other one still has to send me a time. We will see what happens. If they're going to start as quickly as I'd hope, then maybe this gets done by like mid-December. But I could also easily see it. Sorry, I could easily see it being ready only like early next year. He almost got KO'd, then came back to one-shot the guy. He almost got KO'd? Isn't he fighting a can? Buckley or Bilal? I mean, if Buckley doesn't fix his takedown defense, it's not going to go well for him. So right now I'd pick Bilal, actually. Do you think this is a good card to bet on? I think it's a fine card. There's reasonable spots, I'd say. Islam is better striking and grappling than Bilal. It's a great matchup, though. I mean, it would be a good matchup, but they're not going to fight. Oh yeah, the mandatory promo. If you guys are betting on this card and not in my betting service already, link is in the bio. We're doing extremely well and at a pretty cheap price point. We're up like 250 units in the year. Even last week when a lot of people were down, we were up like 7 units. So, join if you have not already. Always feel free to DM me with any questions on that. I mean, JDM, you said. Oh, okay, yeah, it's a great matchup. Battle got blitzed early and got hurt, but high guarded while his opponent gassed, hitting Battle's guard. Interesting. He fought Nick Carawang, who's 13-2 and one of Diaz's boys. Okay, so not a can. Fair enough then. How does Delija beat Waldo realistically? I just can't see it. With the faster hand speed, if he's able to just use that to rack up enough points, like maybe with 3 blitzes per round or so, it's possible he wins 2 to 3 rounds. Obviously, I'm picking Waldo, so I agree with you, but I would not be shocked if Delija won. It is heavyweight. Onama got dropped and almost broken by short notice Roberto Romero, who isn't UFC caliber. Garcia will destroy Onama. Yeah, I think that's very possible. Again, the only concern for Garcia is the defense coming in, but as long as he doesn't just get clipped instantly, he should probably knock out Onama. Lol or Gary? Gary. So, in terms of the change in content, based on what I was talking about earlier, if anyone has any recommendations on how to approach that, I'm very open to that. Because I do want to start changing the tone a little bit. Obviously, don't want to go too overkill. But yeah, I mean, the intention is definitely to create more of a community around that concept. If you weren't doing MMA stuff, what kind of content would you do? Good question. I don't know if I would do content if it wasn't MMA stuff right now, honestly. Use slurs might not be the best idea for social media. Just be yourself, Oracle, don't force it. I appreciate it, but we all have like slightly different parts of ourselves, right? So it's just using a slightly different aspect. But it also has to be in the formatting of the content as well, if that makes any sense. It's not even just like how you say things, it's also how you present everything as a whole. How much MMA training do you have yourself? How many years is it? Of like actual MMA, not counting other martial arts, probably like 6 or 7. I did pure striking for much longer than I did anything MMA. Sorry, I missed the early part of your stream. What were you talking about with the change of content? So, so I basically went on a whole rant. You may want to go back and watch it, in all honesty, because I'm definitely not going to be able to replicate that. But I went on a whole rant about the whole Aspinall situation, with how it pissed me off that a lot of the MMA community is just blatantly kind of stupid. Because if people want to say that Gon would have won if the fight continued, that's a fine take to have, right? I disagree, but people can have that take. Saying that Tom is a quitter because he didn't want to fight with one eye because his opponent did something illegal is stupid. And it's like there's no way to sugarcoat that. There's just like a blatantly moronic take. And I was basically saying that a lot of people in the MMA community like to talk a lot and just say stuff. And I think that trying to have humility in this space has kind of backfired, because I think that the more you talk, the more almost arrogant you are in certain ways. Sometimes the more you spread quickly. Like, people like those viral moments, right? And it's not worth overly respecting people who are just blatantly like have no morals and are just dumb. So I want to change my content and my persona a little bit, to be a little bit more arrogant. Not crazy, but just to the extent that I'm very confident that we are going to build the best community in MMA in terms of whatever you guys are doing. If it's training, I want you guys to be champions. If it's betting, I want you guys to make as much money as possible, right? We're just always going to try to be the best. And I'm not going to question that anymore. And I'm perfectly fine presenting it now. Dillashaw had his ACL, LCL, MCL, and meniscus popped against Sanding and continued to pour him around. He said, Tom, find a way out. What do you think of that? So the difference is that he had those popped because Sandhagen put him in a legal technique and destroyed his knee. So if Dillashaw wanted out, he would have had to take a loss. So obviously, yes, if Tom got hit by a legal strike that stops him from seeing, I'm sure he would have tried to continue. And if he had decided not to continue and it was legal, then fine, you can criticize him. Tom was done dirty by the jealous announcers. Chael and Anthony Smith never won a title themselves. I do think that Gon was on pace to beat him before the eye poke. Yeah, I do think that there might be some jealousy involved. You're right there. I don't think that he was on pace to win just because of how much Tom was adapting. Against forcing Gon to fight Southpaw is a big blow to Gon because stance switching is a major part of his skill set. And then the fact that he was biting so heavily on the feints, like the takedown feint, the left hook feint that brought him into the cross and so on, it really felt like the next feints that Gon bit on, he was really risking getting put out. But whatever the case, you can think that Gon was going to win, right? I'm not going to say you're insane or anything by that. I see it definitely as a tried and true tactic. I think you could pull off an arrogant persona pretty well. Yeah, that's kind of the intention. Thank you, though. I need to first learn a single leg without getting delayed. Being a champion is certainly a long shot. Everything takes time. Do you think Ilya can beat a guy like... Because I don't know the context, I'm not even going to say that out loud. Start every short with the mainstream MMA analyst don't want you to know this about X fighter. That's definitely a possibility. I could lean into that. Thank you for the stream, Markle. Great insight and breakdowns as always. Thank you for coming. No problem. Octagon Oracle versus Islam, who wins? I might struggle a little bit there. Will JDM struggle with Islam's trip-heavy takedown style versus Bilal's single and double legs? I don't think he will, because as long as he doesn't get pushed to the fence, which I don't expect him to, it's going to be a lot harder for Islam to incorporate that. Oracle, how about you just be more funny instead of arrogance? That's harder for me to pull off because my humor is all dry humor. Like, generally speaking. So it's not like the flashy humor that tends to do well in like clips and social media and such. What do you think of the odds in the Tom Gon rematch? Will be or should be? Because will be, I think Aspinall would probably finish around minus 220. For what I think it should be, I mean, actually, I don't even hate those odds for what I think they should be. I would say Aspinall should probably be around like minus 280. He's a strongman? Oh, okay. Oh, the strongmen don't have chances in MMA. Start your videos with "This is why X Fighter is an overrated bum" and clays his opponent. Fair. I mean, that may be something to do with fighters I genuinely dislike. Do you agree with Islam being minus 300 against JDM? I do not. I think that should probably be like, I feel like JDM should be a mild favorite, like minus 125 maybe. Will Islam be able to leverage a head kick against JDM's high guard dip defense to take down? It's possible. That's how I've been saying Islam has his best chance to win, is using head kicks. Maru or Charles? I'll go Charles there. I personally think it should be a pick'em. Yeah, I could see that. I've already put 3,000 on JDM at 3.5x odds before the betting line to move and JDM becomes a tinier dog. Fair. Why do people write off Islam's grappling versus Ilya? I don't think people are writing off Islam's grappling against Ilya. If he's able to get Ilya down, it will definitely be a problem. The reason why it's not as much a factor, in my opinion, is because the way Islam wrestles is very reliant on getting you to the fence. Ilya is not going to back up to the fence at all voluntarily. And if Islam tries his like blitz where he backs people up to the fence, he's going to get knocked out. So it's not like Khabib, where Khabib could have just dove on Ilya's leg with a single leg and just like chain wrestled him back to the fence and gotten him down there. So I would give Khabib a better chance against Ilya than I do Islam. Islam, I don't think, has nearly as good a chance because he can't do that, and we know he will back up, and you know exactly what he's going to throw when he backs up. So I think that Ilya has a very high chance of beating Islam. Why is Dente Johnson almost minus 400 against Dumas? Because he looks scary and people think Dumas sucks, but I don't agree with it, evidently. When does size overwhelm skill? 155 pounds versus 400 plus for Shaw, also steroids. Well, okay, so size helps to a certain extent, but once you go past like a reasonable heavyweight, it starts playing more so against you. Because 400 pounds, he's not going to be fast enough to catch a lightweight. He's also just going to die to a leg kick and gas out in 20 seconds. So the real question is like, oh, does a slightly lower level, like light heavyweight, beat a slightly more skilled lightweight? Like, those are the questions that we should ask, in my opinion. But in terms of like a no skill, then it's not even a question. Like, your lowest level flyweight is going to kill a strong man. How much a chance would you give Khabib to beat Ilya? I genuinely think that would be like a 50-50. Max versus Armin. I think Max wins that pretty easily, honestly. His scrambling is underrated, his takedown defense is underrated, and on the feet it's a world of a difference. I still think Ilya knocks Khabib out after finding the body shot. It's very possible, but there's also a possibility that Khabib just dives on the leg and never lets Ilya strike. Randy Brown versus Gabriel Bonfim. I haven't done tape yet on it, of course. I would just lean Bonfim off of, like, memory, but that's just off pure memory. Holloway 50-42 volume masterclass. Very possible. Brady or Hamzat? I actually think Brady, because I don't think that Hamzat's going to be able to control him on the ground or anything, and Brady has better cardio. On the feet, Brady's also a bit more technical. Brady too chinny. He might get caught, but he's done a good job of maintaining the high guard. And he's a much more dynamic high guard than someone like, say, Onama. Oracle, in all honesty, your next video should 100% be your take on the size versus skill relationship, because it is very unorthodox relative to most MMA fans and would generate a lot of attention for sure. That's fair. Yeah, I should definitely look into doing that. You're right. Thank you for telling me. What attributes would you like to see in a fighter to beat Ian Gary? Ian Gary, you just want to be really good in one category and be good enough in everything else that he can't exploit it. right? It's about finding that balance. Like, you need to be well-rounded enough that he can't just mass exploit one thing, but then you just need to be good enough in another category that you beat him. Like, Shavkat, again, was a good enough grappler, better than Gary, I guess, that he was able to win the rounds that way. And he was well-rounded enough on the feet that Gary couldn't just, like, knock him out or something like that. How can Bilal beat Gary? He's gonna really need to be able to, like, corner him. Guaranteed banger? Hopefully. I'll see what I could do about a video like that, yeah. Have you seen any tape on Gable Stevenson? What do you rate his chances if he hypothetically were to get into the UFC? I think I saw the highlights of his first fight, but it's not like there was much there. I mean, he's a heavyweight, right? So he has some talent. He's going to go pretty far. But in terms of, like, become a champion or something, I would have to look into more. Do you think Merab beats Volk or Mobzar? Honestly, now, I think he might. Because in the past, it was like, okay, Merab isn't going to be able to take down Volk, and on the feet, Volk is just going to outclass him. But now Merab's doing better on the feet. And I think people are really underrating his adjustments. So I do think Merab has a solid chance against both of them. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? I don't really have a 10 years plan. I have more of like a 3 to 5 years plan. How much of a chance would you give Jones to beat Pereira? Maybe like 35%. You think Dumont is the last chance of any active bantamweights have to beat Kayla? Yeah, I mean, of course, if the Nunes fight happens, Nunes has a chance. But if we're discounting Nunes, then yeah, Dumont is the last chance. If Pantoja and Merab win, do you think they should fight each other since they would basically be lapping their divisions? Yeah, I do. Unless Merab is going to go up. I'm calling it Gable is gonna go in a tear before dying to Chris Barnett. That would be hysterical. Is high-level guard game or good scrambles the way to beat Hamzat? Okay, so I've seen people say that, and I understand where they're coming from. I just think realistically, you need to be able to force him to expend energy, and I think you'll do that more if you can stuff the initial takedowns and force him to continuously chain wrestle. Granted, yes, you need to be able to get up. So you are going to get taken down, most likely, unless like somehow you chin him instantly. So you need to be able to do stuff off your back, but I'd say the emphasis should be more so on like forcing him into a very long chain wrestling exchange, rather than like, oh, we're just going to play guard. What should be the odds for Jones versus Pereira? I would say Pereira should be like minus 180, minus 200. No, a bit more than that. It'd be like minus 250. Really, because I don't see it. Yes, he has improved his striking, but Volk's striking is just next level. His jab is so good. His calf kicks, well, even clinch. Robin working from there. Well, the problem is most of Volk's tools rely on him being able to maintain space and time, which Merab is very good at disrupting. Because if Merab is pressuring a lot, if he's shooting the takedowns, even if he's failing, that's going to disrupt Volk's ability to just like get into the rhythm of his jab and his calf kicks. I think Pantoja's easy pickings for Merab. I would favor Merab, but I think it could be a highly competitive fight. Because he's not going to be able to like shoot blind takedowns against Pantoja. He's going to risk getting sub then. How do you think the grappling match between Gable and Craig Jones would have gone? Craig Jones would have humiliated him. JDM or Hamzat at 185. I'd probably lean Hamzat. None of Merab's previous opponents have had the advantage. Of like what, striking at range like that? I mean, you could say O'Malley did. Not that O'Malley has nearly as good takedown defense and such as Volk, of course. How do you think Hamza does a light heavyweight? It depends, like, who's champion at light heavyweight if he were to go up. Against Alex, he definitely has a chance, but I would favor Alex. Do you think Pantoja can sub Umar? Yeah, I do. Craig would have choked him out however he wanted? Yes, I agree. Who wins Prates versus Shavkat? Prates. Shavkat's defense isn't good enough. You remind me of my stats TA. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but fair. Azamat versus Khalil. I'd lean Azamat. What's with O'Malley, like, constantly tripping all the time? He tripped over twice against Merab in the rematch, and it cost him the first round. I think that he was really rushing his footwork, and credit to Merab, that's partially because of his pressure, of course. But O'Malley was definitely not calm in that fight, to say the least. I'm so excited for 322, that's the big one, man. Yeah, I agree. Me too. Shavkat beats Prates via sitting out till December and boring Prates to death. Pretty much. Thoughts on Umar's performance against Mario? I didn't love it. I thought that ending up in the bad position with the toe hold, I mean, to be fair, like, Merab isn't going to use a toe hold on you, most likely. But even the whole, like, kick/knee situation was just really bad defensive awareness from Umar. And then he also gassed, like he did against Merab, except, again, this is only 3 rounds. So I just don't see Umar ever being able to beat Merab, but who knows. Azamat versus Olberg. I'd lean Azamat. Prime GSP or Islam properly bulked to 170. I'd say probably Prime GSP. Also, Jamal Hill saying Ilya pieced him up inspiring. I could 100% see it. How long will it take for Merab to lose? I think it'll have to be like 37 at this point. Warrior or Umar in the rematch? That's a tough one. I think I'd slightly lean Corey again. I would probably pick Corey. And again, the strength difference is too much. Volk was out muscling Islam up a weight class. Volk wouldn't need to waste any energy defending the takedowns. I mean, strength difference, it doesn't matter, because even if Volk can defend the takedowns, which I would not be shocked, right, if he could, the point is it disrupts his pace. And Volk is a very pace-heavy fighter. If you can disrupt his pace, he's going to have issues. So he has to get that rhythm going with his jab, with the calf kick, and so on. So when you watch his fight with Ilya, he was struggling a lot with Ilya early. Then he kind of settled into his pace in round 2. And then, in late round 1. And then in round 2, Ilya figured out how to disrupt his pace again via extending the combo and using his footwork to, like, kind of, what would be the word? Kind of trap him against the fence, let's say. Not the word I was looking for, but good enough. In your opinion, who would be the worst champion for light heavyweight? The worst champion? I would say Ankalaev's the worst champion just because he's kind of boring. Or Hill has turned into a joke in the community. Yeah, that's tough. Volk won round 1. Yeah, he did. If Umar loses to Merab again, do you think that's basically it for him? I'm definitely making an assumption, but he kind of gives me the impression that he just quit after, or something after losing again. That's very possible. I do agree with you there. I think, especially if he got finished or got, like, dominated, which I think they're both very possible, then I think he may just hang it up. Do you think someone like Tyra could beat Merab? I think Tyra would have problems with the pace. Skill-wise, it's possible, but, like, pragmatically, I don't think it would happen. Who do you think is the best featherweight of all time? Featherweight that could beat every other featherweights. So, Honestly, Connor probably. Because if we look at the matchups all individually, he sparks every featherweight except for potentially Holloway. Like that's his only bad matchup. And even with Holloway, I could definitely still see him winning. So if we were thinking about it in terms of like, okay, which featherweight champ could beat the majority of featherweights of all time, then it's probably Connor. How do you think Bilal versus Shavkat would have played out? I was mixed of who to pick that fight. I genuinely don't know. I had it close to 50-50. Is Strickland the best distance closer via striking in the UFC? Not in my opinion, because his footwork isn't spectacular. Could a lightweight beat a middleweight or light heavyweight in a street fight? I mean, it depends on the skill level. If we're talking about a more skilled lightweight, then yeah, it's very possible. Hi, Oracle, do you work any jobs outside of YouTube? So, outside of YouTube specifically, yes, definitely. Outside of MMA stuff in general, no, I do not right now. So, a lot of my time goes, of course, into maintaining the whole betting application I have, the Instagram content, and then we're making the new product for fighter optimization as well. I have a feeling that Tyra chins Moreno. It's possible. Prime 55 McGregor beats every featherweight champion except Holloway. Yeah, he could lose to Holloway. He could beat Holloway. It's a close one, in my opinion. How would you build the theoretical perfect fighter to beat Merab? So I would actually have it be someone like a younger Henry Cejudo with more knockout power. Basically, you want someone who is like a shorter stature, who has a lot of power in their hands, and has the ability to kind of negate the wrestling. Jeff Neal or Hamzat at 170. This was a scary matchup for Hamzat, not gonna lie. I still think Hamzat would win, but I do understand what you're saying. Do you think Strickland would do better against Hamzat than expected? Yes. While I don't think I would pick Strickland, I could see it being like a 48-47 decision. Real late, but howdy, Oracle. Hey, how are you doing? Who wins, Hill versus Reyes? I'd lean Reyes, because Hill has to go forwards into Reyes' counter-striking, and I think he's a much cleaner striker. Solongan, ironically, is a tough matchup for Merab. It's possible. I still think he'd get overwhelmed in terms of the volume, but he would win. I remember vaguely talking about this before, but who do you believe was the most keeper champion of all time and of current era? It's an interesting question. The normal like default is usually Aljo, which is a little bit harsh because I do think he beat Cejudo. I did have Jan beating him the second time, but it was close to be fair. But like in terms of never really established his reign properly, you could say Sterling. Outside of him, I would say Cormier actually, which I know a lot of people dislike because some people like Cormier. But Cormier was never the best at any weight class. Did you see the double leg Bilal had on Jeff? Bilal was so deep and Jeff still defended. Yeah, that is true. I don't know how he'd do with the chain wrestling aspect of it because Bilal isn't really good at chaining. But I do understand what you guys are getting at for sure. I still would lean Hamzat, but yeah, it could have been a very interesting fight. Do you expect Prime Connor to finish Topuria at featherweight? Yes, I would. Do you think Edwards is being counted out against Prates? I don't think he's being counted out. There's a lot of people being like, oh, Edwards definitely could pull this off. I think that the problem with Edwards is you always have to assume he's not going to fight how he logically should. So you kind of have to pick Prates just on merit of the fact that Edwards will probably just back up and give Prates what he wants. Build the fighter to beat Ilya? I mean, it's basically just Connor. You want a southpaw who has one punch knockout power who likes countering. It's Bilal, Uncle Ivan, Aljo, the biggest paper champions of all time. Bilal's a fair pick also, yeah. Prime Charles versus Prime Connor. I'd have to lean Connor because Charles would have probably gotten clipped, and Connor's not someone you want to clip you. Volkov versus Poatan. I'd lean towards Alex. When did you start watching MMA? I started watching consistently around in like 2016 or so. Bilal or Gary? I'm leaning Bilal. I think Gary. I think Gary can just game plan around Bilal because you know exactly what Bilal's going to do. True, DC only became the light heavyweight champion because Jones was out there GTA maxing, and at heavyweight he just KO'd Stipe after an eye poke. Yeah, exactly. And then Stipe, of course, beat him twice after, so. If you could, would you interview fighters, and who would you interview first? So, I could. Like, there are fighters, of course, who follow me, and such. I just don't really know how to make content that would be at the level that I want to present, if that makes any sense, out of interviews. If I was going to get like a popular fighter, then I would be stupid not to take it, just because the publicity from it realistically. But in terms of like, okay, the mid-level fighters that I probably could get, I just don't know if I would do it because I wouldn't really know how to make it good enough content. Which Alex? I assume I was talking about Pereira. How confident are you picking Dumas? Not confident at all. Connor or Tony? As much as I love Tony, I'd probably have to lean Connor. Biggie versus Umar, probably Umar decision in my opinion. Yeah, I'd say Umar decision. Islam is the GOAT off of a JDM win. I still think that GSP probably has him outdone there, but if he were to get a few defenses at welterweight, then we're talking. You will be impressed by Alexandre Topuria against Bekzat. Very possible. I'm not like saying Alexandre Topuria has no chance by any means. I very much respect Alexandre's game planning. So part of me wants to pick him because of that, but we'll see. What predictions do you think you will get wrong this week? Last week it was Nazara, before that was Frivola. Also, what did you miss that makes those predictions wrong? So to answer your question about what I missed that made them wrong, with the Frivola one, Kyle Nelson actually legitimately did look better moving up to 155, which I did not expect. So fair play to him. Definitely good move in his career. I don't know why he stayed at 145 that long if he was actually going to be like that different at 155. With Nazrat, I still think it was the best pick with the information we had, realistically. Good on Seokhyeon finding the kill shot. I do think Nazrat's the overall better fighter, though. If I knew what prediction I was going to get wrong this week, then I would just change my prediction. But, like, my least confident predictions are, say, like Dumas, stuff like that. Tony got clipped a lot. It was a little bit exaggerated how much he got clipped, but he got clipped often enough for me to think that Connor would land. Wellmaker versus Hadon. I have to look at Hadon tape. I don't really remember. Is Connor your favorite fighter? No, definitely not, no. I don't think Connor's even in, like, my top 10. I respect Connor's abilities, but, and I've definitely studied him a fair amount, but... Also, would you ever do recap streams after fights? Sometimes I'm always curious about your initial reactions to fight like Diego Lopez versus John Silva. Yeah, I should probably start doing that. You think the White House event will be a huge disappointment? I don't think UFC will let it be. I do think they will definitely force that to be a good event. Despite Charles being company man, being the champion on an 11-fight win streak, they're catering to a guy... Okay. What's your biggest MMA betting win? For a single bet, it may have been Elves Brenner to finish Guram Kutaladze. For like a parlay bet, you guys have seen the ones on Instagram. Or if you haven't, check it out. This, I think we hit like a plus 30-something thousand one parlay. Who would you pick in Seokhyeon versus Rufy? I'd pick Rufy. You think Turner wins his comeback fight against Barboza? Yeah, I do. I just think Alexandre's experience cornering Ilya's unique advantage for his own career. I mean, a lot of fighters corner, so I don't really agree with you there. But I would say just understanding how good a game planner he is, that he could definitely make things work. Conor versus Joel Alvarez at 170. Honestly, seeing how much Joel Alvarez still gets hit, I don't like his chances against like a good power puncher. Does Quinlan Seokhyeon have top 5 potential? Not from what I've seen so far. Conor or Bilal? You know, that's an interesting question. Because Conor's by far the better fighter, right? But Bilal is seemingly, like, immortal now. So, if Conor can't finish him, it may be a problem in the later rounds. I'd still lean towards Conor winning, like, a 48-47. But it's an interesting fight. If they get Islam Ilya into the White House, it's automatically peak. Yeah, I agree. Look, the thing that's going to ruin the White House card is the lack of real UFC fans that are going to be in attendance. Oh, I don't expect any actual UFC fans to be in attendance. But I think if they make the production value good enough, it won't matter. Why is Guram a bum while having Avengers cornering him? It's that striking style. It looks really good on paper, but it's just not effective in MMA. It's this Muay Thai-ish striking style that, like, it's the same as John Pork, right? They have, like, very similar methodology of striking. And it looks like it should be spectacular, but then it just isn't. Will Turner chin Barboza? Probably. Who wins? Ilya versus Imavov and how? Tough one. I'm not sure. Joel or Bilal? In 3 rounds, maybe Joel. In 5 rounds, probably Bilal. Maybe I'm discrediting Joel too much, just based off of like a short notice bad performance, but we'll have to see if he can actually step it up in a full notice, because I did not like how he looked against Luque. Turner versus Barboza makes me sad. Barboza got battered by clothes. There's no way Turner doesn't get a brutal KO. Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Bilal may be the only guy who's gotten whose chin got better at 36. Yeah, exactly. Ilya chins Bilal and Usman. Probably. What about Azamat? Lets him beat the range disadvantage. Just educated boxing. He knows how to close the distance effectively. He uses proper head movement, he uses feints and so on, and he navigates it so he gets inside and hits you. Whatever roids Bilal took gave him Max Holloway chin. Fair. How confident do you think Merab will beat Umar again? Let's make a bet. I'm very confident Umar wins rematch. We'll see what the odds are when they come out. If it's still worth me betting on Merab, then I will. I'm like 90% confident that Merab beats Umar. Umar's just not good enough. I mean, Billy blatantly used PEDs. I'm not sure if you meant Bilal and that autocorrected. If there's no one to boo during a fight, then the fighters won't feel pressured to create more action at the White House. I mean, I think they will have external pressure, to say the least. I'm pretty sure they're going to be told before the fight, like, if your fight is not entertaining, we're cutting you instantly. Why don't you like a Bilal? Is that the question you're asking? Bilal just is not very skilled. How far do you see Buckley going? If he doesn't fix anything, not much further. But he has time to make improvements. Who do you think becomes champ after Volk leaves? John Silva. Does Bo Nickel have dirt on the matchmakers? How is he on the main card of another big card? Even Bo Nickel himself said it might be rage bait from the UFC. So I don't know. Osman has such an awkward style for Alex Pereira. They should book it after Ulberg and hold off on the Yuri BS. I think Alex is going to move up anyway. People don't realize how huge Imavov is. Yeah, he is pretty big. What big matchup predictions are you extremely confident? Like on pay-per-views? Like what matchups are you talking about? Rank the fighting nerds based on potential now that they all lost. I mean, it's still pretty similar. I'm still going to say Silva's 1. I'm probably going to say Rufy's 2, even though him and Protes are pretty close. 3 Protes and 4 Kaio. Even the autocorrect doesn't know Bilal's name, you can't make this up. True. I meant like, my bad. Yeah, I don't like hate Bilal or anything, I just don't see much about his skill set that impresses me. A couple reels on Ilya Poatan having success at 170 and 255 are definitely bold takes for the layman and maybe similar to what you're looking for in content style. That is a good point. Thank you for saying that. I should definitely do that. 10 months ago, Bilal fist bump made my hand start. That's crazy. Bo is on the main card just so people talk about it. Yeah, seems like it. How does Bo Nickel actually do against Hamzat? Okay, the funny thing is that Nickel would do better than people are expecting against Hamzat, probably. That being said, he still loses for sure. But it would just be like a fight where everyone's confused because he probably would like make it to decision or something like that. Zhang Weili is the lock of the century, and I don't even bet. I hope so. The results of the matchups. Which matchups? That's on Buckley saying Pereira turned him down, and who would have won that fight? Obviously Alex, but just pretend to think about it for a second. I can be silent for 5 seconds before saying Alex if you want. Which fighter would you glaze the most? Like, you know how Bedtime has JDM as his guy. Probably John Silva. I'm just very disappointed by his last performance. Because not, like, you need to have control over your emotions when you fight. You can be emotional, that's okay. But you need to have control. On upcoming booked fights, what is the biggest lock and the most unpredictable? I mean, I assume you're talking about like main events, not just fights in general. If we're talking about main events, then like, I mean, I would say Armin has a pretty high chance against Hooker. I would say most uncertain, I mean, maybe JDM Makachev. Safest bet for this weekend's banger of a card? Let me see. I will tell you I like Norma Dumont. For other bets, just join the Discord and we'll talk about it there. If you guys are betting, just join the Discord. Join the betting Discord. Once you sign up for that, yeah, then I'll answer any of your questions in there. Is Merab striking actually good, or is it spamming takedowns plus overhand? It's actually getting pretty good. Of course, the takedown threat definitely helps him, but he has some skill there. Who wins, Durden or Eddie Hall? Probably Durden. If there's a time limit, Durden. If there's no time limit, Eddie Hall, probably. John was wilding on Unbedded that week. I didn't watch it, but fair. You got a nickname? I do, but I'm not sure I'll share it here. The Discord is goated. Thanks, yeah. Yeah, for those of you who are not in the Discord yet, if you're betting, and honestly, even if you're not, we talk about so much other stuff as well. If Rob didn't exist, who would have been champion this whole time? Probably Umar right now. Imagine having to fight Merab in Salt Lake City or Mexico City. Is that worse than fighting in Ngannou? Yeah, probably. That would just be horrific. Nickname should be Oracle. Yeah, that's what most people call me. How to join the Discord? Yeah, so if you guys need to sign up, the link is in the description here. It should be. It's theoctagonoracle.com, so you guys will see it in the description. And then just go through the sign up, and so on. If you guys have any questions, you can always ask or DM me. What does Oracle mean? It's basically just someone who can predict the future in some ways, kind of like a seer. It has more context than like mythology and such. Probably should have joined that a while ago. Yeah, for sure. I know it's really fun. I mean, I initially thought it was just going to be straight up betting, but it's definitely become a community well beyond that. Almeida or Hamzat at heavyweight? I'd probably lean Almeida just because they have the same game plan and like kind of the same skill at it. Hamzat's of course a bit better skill wise, but with wrestling, size does matter a little bit more, and I think Almeida's big enough to make up for the skill gap, but I'm not confident. Opinions on Gage Young? I mean, he's solid. Also, was Octagon Oracle a playoff MMA guru? Was that the original intention? When I knew the name, when I made the name, I actually didn't even know MMA guru was a thing. So no, it was just my idea. When did you quit your job before going full into MMA? Who, if you had one? So I was doing freelance work before I went fully into the MMA stuff. So there was no like complicated quit thing. I just finished my last job and then stopped. Do you like milkshakes? Sure. I mean, ice cream is good. Who's the biggest guy you think Ilya could beat? I mean, if we're just going by weight, I mean, I'm sure he could flatline Barnett. If you were in the UFC, say for example, fighting in the lightweight division, and then got call that you were fighting Islam, how would you react? I mean, if I was able to fight in the lightweight division and got a call that I was fighting Islam, I mean, with the knowledge I have and assuming that I was actually a full-time fighter and all of that, I mean, I have the understanding of how to beat him, so if I had the skills developed, it would be okay. I would be down for it in that case. Thoughts on Evan Elder, the guy who beat Gage Young? Yeah, I think he definitely has potential as well. Sorry if I missed it, but did you mention what happened with the app developers? Yeah, so I talked about it earlier, but I'll reiterate it quickly. So basically, I'm in communication with 2 studios right now. I have a call with one of them on Monday. The other one has to get back to me when they want to talk. And I'm hoping that we can finish it before end of year. This stuff gets complicated politically, or I shouldn't say politically, but in terms of making sure all the legalities and such are dealt with, and then making sure I don't give them anything that is too valuable. So making sure they can work on stuff without actually having access to all the source code. You get what I mean? So it's going to be a process. I really do want to be able to launch at absolute latest in January, though. So hopefully it can progress fairly quickly. Do you go to the gym? Yes, I do. What's your favorite food and drink? I like sodas, honestly, even though obviously it's not the best thing to have consistently. Foods, I'm less I don't know what I'd say for a favorite food. Was UFC 321 the worst card of the year? Honestly, there was probably worse. We're probably overreacting just because of how bad the main event thing was. But it was really anticlimactic, yeah. What was worse, the Tom eye poke or Chris Barnett flashing us? I think the Tom eye poke, because most of us already fell asleep by the time Chris Barnett flashed us. What freelancing job did you do and did it pay well? Basically coding work. Did it pay well? I mean, barely. I had to deal with clients sometimes just trying to not pay, but other than that, yeah, it was reasonable. If you could bless one fighter with infinite cardio, who do you think would get the best results from it? I'd choose Trevor Peek. I don't think Trevor Peek's biggest issue is the cardio, though. I think it's just he needs to clean up the technique a little bit, but I do understand what you're saying. That's a good question. I'd have to think about that a little more, actually. Yeah, software contracts are crazy. Yeah, definitely. Sucks. Or should the UFC have another pay-per-view event? I mean, they should just try to do it pretty much everywhere if they can, in my opinion. How much will it cost? I don't know for sure. I have to have the meetings and then see what they are pitching and if I'm okay with that. But it's going to cost a lot. Why don't you do cam on streams? Is it just a privacy thing? Yeah, I honestly I don't have any pictures on the internet. I've always been a very private person, so would honestly just rather continue that. What's your gym split? What do you mean by that? Favorite soda? It varies depending on my mood, but I'd say maybe root beer. Ilya or Francis? Controversial take, I'll probably say Ilya. Interesting developments, cool to hear. Thanks, yeah. Is there a reason you don't do watch parties, by the way? Okay, so there's a few reasons. First of all, I'm still having trouble getting the delay to not be terrible. Watch parties are kind of anticlimactic if you're hearing my reaction 10 seconds later. So that is one problem. Other problem, I'm not sure I necessarily have entertaining reactions, but I'd have to test that out. But if I can get the delay, not bad, then I would try to do that most likely. What's your favorite flavor of ice cream? That's purely a mood thing, in my opinion. Favorite counter? Still lacrosse, probably. How long have you been programming? Since mid-high school. Oh, gym split is how you divide your days when you go into the gym, push-pull legs or arms. Oh, okay. Because I'm not training for anything specific right now, I don't really care. I'll just do what I feel like I should be doing. I also don't do it as my only exercise. So I don't do like a crazy split because I run a lot as well. Like for me right now, currently, since I'm just prioritizing health, I do mostly running and then some gym stuff. Are you Orthodox or Southpaw? Southpaw. Have you ever been to a UFC event in person? Unfortunately not. It's just too expensive for me to justify. Would you ever incorporate a co-host into your vids? I feel like it would make stuff more entertaining. I've definitely thought about doing so, yeah. At some point, I may just pull you guys in randomly and then do like fight breakdowns. Like each breakdown will have one of you guys as a guest. That's kind of where Southpaw's kind of mysterious. Thanks, I think. What does Ilya do to a Francis Blitz? Just footwork. Sidestep, shoot, whatever he needs to do. Favorite Southpaw fighter? Probably BSD, because I just like BSD. Do your family or friends know about the channel, or has someone recognized your voice, someone that personally knows you? Yeah, my family and friends know. In terms of has someone randomly recognized my voice? No, I'm not big enough for that. He'll start World War III with inviting people in. Fair. It might be a problem, we'll see. Southpaw's always stepping on my lead leg. Yes. Pull me in, get ready for the worst takes you've ever heard. Could be fun. That'd be funny, bringing on random guys for a breakdown. Yeah, exactly. It would be funny if nothing else. So how far do you see Officer Joseph Piker going at middleweight? Honestly, he could go pretty far. I mean, like, people... I think because of the fact that he was so salty after the Hermanson fight, people kind of forgot that he is a good fighter. He has power. He can grapple. I mean, I do think he'll be top 5 at some point. You're a right-handed southpaw? No, I'm a left-handed southpaw. Tips on how to enjoy running. You enjoy running by being miserable running for long enough that it becomes not miserable until you reach a certain point. So, like, running never is not miserable when you're tired. But if you can extend your cardio so that you're not tired for like 5 or 6 miles, well, then you have like 5 or 6 miles where it's not miserable. What kind of shoe brand do you use for running? I think I have Adidas, but I don't have like good running shoes, if that's your question. I would not recommend the shoes I have by any means. No, I have Asics, not Adidas. I have Asics, yeah. But yeah, I don't have like proper running shoes. I also do need to get new sneakers. Mine are like completely destroyed. Like the bottom is just straight up smooth at this point. I can't even run 3 miles, but I spar for 15 minutes straight. Yeah, that happens. Sometimes this specific task cardio is just much better. Any tips for beginners running? Focus on your form, because even if it doesn't seem important, the further you start running, the more you'll pick up random injuries if you don't focus on your form a lot, and it becomes really annoying later. So just don't let it become an issue. What type of runner are you? Like hiker, treadmill, or jog around the block? Kind of jog around the block type of thing. There's a lot of hills in my area, so I end up doing like... basically, when I'm at my best, I usually do like 12 miles with hills. Long-form cardio increases cortisol unoptimally and ages you. That's mostly a myth. A lot of people have said it, but it's not really true. Does it increase cortisol? Somewhat, yes. That's usually extreme long, long distance running though. It's not like, oh, okay, you run 3 miles and your cortisol goes up much. Like, any workout is going to increase your cortisol to some extent. That's just the reality of it. But yeah, the whole like, oh, like cardio will like decrease your testosterone and all that BS is like 90% myth. How does Khalil do in a rematch against Johnny Walker? Yeah, Roundtree probably wins a rematch. Acute cortisol is good for you. It's chronic cortisol is bad. Fair. What does Oracle listen to music-wise? I have a large diversity, but for workout stuff, mainly like punk rap. Otherwise, like pretty much anything except for country. Which fighter would you train with? I'd be open to training with a fair amount of them. Base country hitter, thanks. Train with Dober, that would get a little bit messy. Alright, I am probably going to wrap things up here. Thank you all for coming today. If you guys are betting, do click on the link in the description and ask me any questions if you need to. Yeah, so I'll talk to you guys soon. We'll see how this event goes. Thank you all for coming again, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good night, everyone.